we're so happy to have Steve Frank with us again. I mean, this is really popular. Your Friday participation in our forum has been very, very well received. And we appreciate your time, Steve, because we know you're really busy and read about all the things you're doing in Simi Valley. I really liked reading about the support for the police, the pro-police car rally that you guys had.
Right. 2 Saturdays ago, we had a car rally. I had hoped to get 200 to 300 cars out to show our support for what we call our Simi Valley Cops or Tops. And instead, we got about 1,500 cars with about 2,500 people, and showed real energy and excitement among the folks. Folks were very interested in doing this. They were happy to do this. I've been involved doing these type of projects for many years, but I've never seen such a happy group of people to say thank you to the police.
It's great. So I thought we should do something like that. We need to do something to support the police. Anyway, hey, welcome. Glad that you've all joined us this morning. And I would like to introduce, I'm Jan Soule, and I'd like to introduce Wendy Brukwinski, our first VP, and who is our main driver in organizing our Friday forums, which we appreciate. We have 2 panelists with us this morning that are veteran panelists, and they'll be back when Steve is finished with his presentation, and they'll be asking their own questions plus fielding questions from our audience. And that is Ken Olivison. Wave your hand, Ken. And Vicki Norden. And Vicki is running for state senate. And oh, pray Lord help her to get elected. We need some sanity in the state legislature. And so we're going to begin. We've got a few quick announcements, as we always do, if I don't screw it up. Okay. Upcoming events. We had a lunch-in at Three Flames, where we typically had our meetings to support their business. And that was in July 31st, I believe. And it was so well received. We had 54 of our members and guests show up for lunch at Three Flames, all sitting at tables of 6 people, and not a program, just visiting. And people were so happy just to be able to sit and chat with like-minded people that they begged us to do it again. So we're doing it September 11th. At Three Flames, and this time our premium members are free. The lunch is $25, but if you're a premium member, that means you're a Reagan, Patriot Gold, or sponsor, it's free. You go to our website and sign up. And on the 15th, we are hosting in Senate District 15, which covers good part of Santa Clara County. The top 2 in the race are both Dems. And one is Dave Cortese, the supervisor. The other one is Ann Revelle. What we did is invited them to opportunity, because they don't want the Republican vote, obviously, to get elected. And so we invited them to a face-off, and they agreed. They're both Dems, and we want to give you the opportunity to figure out which is the least of the 2 evils, essentially. So that is September 15th from 7:30 to 8:30, and you can go to our website and sign up and get the link for that. And September 23rd, if Trevor Loudon, if you never heard him speak, he is amazing. He has been tracing the communists in our government for years. And he's written several, his last one called Reds identified that every single one of the Democrat candidates, except for Michael Bloomberg, who were running for president, were backed by the Social Democrat Party and got their start. And you will be interested in his stories. Most people don't know that Joe Biden went from being a city council person in Scranton to a U.S. senator. How does that happen except you're backed by the Socialist Democrat Party? And of course, we all understand you just have to find the communists really have to find really stupid and malleable people to make that happen. We've been having Republican parties ongoing throughout Santa Clara County. They're listed on our website. Come and join a Republican Party. You don't know how fun it is for Republicans to actually get to meet together and find out they are not alone in the Valley. And of course, download petitions and recall Gavin Newsom. That's on our website. And Steve.
You had a group of activities going on. Do not forget September 29th. That is when the first presidential debate is. And I've noticed without promotion by the state party, Women's Federated, Independent Republican clubs, CRA clubs, conservatives all over the state are beginning to form watch parties for that first debate on September 29th. Between the president and Sleepy Joe. Then on October 7th, you have the vice presidential debate between Willie Brown's former mistress and Mike Pence. Right, that's going to, there are numerous ballot propositions. I'm sorry to tell you that Nancy Pelosi, along with Gavin Newsom, have come out in favor of KKK type of discrimination. They don't believe that black people or women are capable of getting into college, getting contracts, getting jobs without the government mandating it. And so they want to discriminate against people. And the first people who are going to be discriminated against are Asian students at the UC system. Currently about 35% of the students in the UC system are Asian students. If Proposition 16 passes, only 15% of the students could be Asian. In other words, because you're Asian, you will not be allowed to go to the UC system. That is rank discrimination. You know, the Democrats claim to be in favor of people of color. No, they're not. They're just your plain ordinary run-of-the-mill bigots.
Truly.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now I will turn the meeting over to Wendy, and we'll all go away, and she'll introduce Steve, and then our panelists will come back after.
Well, thank you. And as always, ask your questions for Steve, either via QA or chat. And we have a couple of great moderators today that are going to assist with those questions. And about Steve, as you know, from hearing him in the past, we love having him come visit us. He's a political consultant, a conservative activist, and the editor of California Political News and Views. And make sure, if you haven't already, sign up for that at capoliticalreview.com. And I have to start this, Steve. There's already a question in the Q&A. So is it true that RNC Chair Jessica Patterson is endorsing Biden? And with that, I'll be back when you're done. Thank you.
No, it's not true that she's endorsing Biden. It's just that she's not telling anything about President Trump. Here's some background. One, as you know, because of the pandemic, there was only 6 delegates allowed to go to the RNC convention. And so far, as of yesterday, Jessica Patterson has not mentioned anything about being at the convention, supporting President Trump on her Facebook account. Worse than that, the CRP had created a video of all the 6 delegates and Congressman McCarthy to tell how wonderful it was to be in Charlotte to nominate the president. One person was missing from that video, Jessica Patterson. She is taking her own advice. She's told the LA Times several months ago in the George Skelton column that she's advising candidates to stay away from Trump, and she personally appears to be staying away from Trump. Second, while she is not supporting Joe Biden, we have 4 people, a minimum of 4 people, who are delegates to the CRP who have publicly come out in favor of Joe Biden, and so far no action has been taken against any of them. Complaints have been filed against 2 of those people, and the other 2, Jessica is hoping that no one will file a complaint against them. In other words, Jessica there's literally a pro-Biden Democrat wing or caucus in the California Republican Party, and the state chair is silent on this and protecting them from being thrown out of the party. The CRP bylaws are very clear. If you endorse a candidate against a Republican nominee, you should be thrown out of the party. She has been protecting them so far. So while she has personally not issued the magic words that she supports President Biden, or Vice President Biden, she has certainly not been a clear supporter of the president.
That is just awful. Anyway, did you want to come on with whatever you were talking about today? And let's see, you had a lot of interesting stuff. So go for it, and I'll be back with questions in a second.
Let me start as to where we are legislatively in the state of California. As you all know, at midnight on August 31st, the legislative session ended. It's been predicted that the governor was going to call a special session because there were so many items that hadn't been considered. So far, he has not done that, but there has been a call by Assemblyman Kevin Kiley and others to assure that there is a special session because we do not have a budget. Even though we technically passed a budget months ago, that budget does not balance itself out. That budget was $54 billion in deficit and would be $68 billion in deficit if the $14 billion that the Democrats want from the president doesn't arrive. And it's obvious the president's not going to bail out a failed, corrupt state government. And so they're not going to get that $14 billion. To give you an idea, at $54 billion, the deficit is larger than the budget of 20 other states, just our deficit. We don't know what the revenues are. We don't know what the predictions of the revenues are. We do know that early estimates have been correct. About 20% plus or minus of our school kids have ghosted the system. They're no longer part of government education for one reason or another here in California. And that's a big plus, but it doesn't matter to the educators if no kids show up, because the budget is predicated on having the ADA, average daily attendance, which determines the amount of money the district gets per child, as of February of 2020 through June of 2021. So even if no kids show up to school, even if they continue to pretend to educate our kids, we're going to wind up paying for it so the teachers union can get full pay and benefits. Interestingly enough, the governor has decided to open up our schools. That's what the headline says. Do not believe the headlines. They are very much misleading. The schools are only being opened up on campus with kids who are special needs or so-called disadvantaged. If your kid is just a run-of-the-mill kid, if your kid is a smart kid needing a good education, they're not going to be allowed on campus. And so while they're claiming that they're going to open up the schools, only a minimal amount of students are going to be allowed to do it. Second, the governor is bragging, well, all you have to do is ask for a waiver. Yes, you can ask for a waiver, but there's a difference between asking for a waiver and getting a waiver. In Fresno County, it took a court order for a private school to be able to open up based on the scientific data, because the governor and the county board of education didn't want to open up their schools. So while almost all the school districts in Fresno County have asked for waivers, it took a court case to get one small private school to be able to open up in the whole county. And so don't believe the headlines. They're just pretending with us. They're playing ping pong with us. And Santa Cruz County is a great example of that ping pong game being played. About 3 weeks ago, the governor opened up Santa Cruz County. Everything is wonderful. He smiled. Moments after he issued his order opening up the county, the public health director of Santa Cruz County closed it down. It was a concerted, coordinated effort between the governor and the public health director to make people feel like something was happening, and then the rug was pulled out from under them. In county after county, this is happening. Even if things are opened up for a short period of time, no one knows for sure if they're going to stay open. So the legislature closed on August 31st. The governor has till midnight on September 30th in which to sign any of the bills that were passed. And one by one, he'll be signing them. He has come out in favor of a study for reparations. And this is one of the more controversial bills. And let's consider what reparations means. First of all, they want a study to see how much money every Black Californian should receive for living in a systematic racist society. What is racist? Racism is Jim Crow laws created by the Democrat Party. Racism is segregation laws developed by the Democrat Party. Racism is the KKK founded by the Democrat Party. Racism is the black genocide by Planned Parenthood, which is supported by the Democrat Party. Racism is having a vice presidential candidate whose descendants, whose family were slave traders and slave owners, never once apologizing for it and never offering reparations for her family's desire. While they want to take down the statue of the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, because they were slave owners, the Democrat Party in 2020 put a descendant of slave owners and traders on their national ticket. What does that say about the sincerity or the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party? If there are reparations to be paid, it should be paid by the Democrat Party. They are the founders of racism in this nation, the founders of slavery in this nation, the defender of racism in this nation. And as late as this year, the Democrat Party put Proposition 16 on the ballot to destroy education for Asian students, for white students, for Hispanic students, for Native American students. That's discrimination. The Democrat Party needs to pay reparations for its role, leading role, and it needs to issue a Barack Obama type of apology to the nation and to the Black Americans for what it has done to this community and to the state and this nation. Until then, they cannot be taken seriously. So the issue of racism is a major topic now. A second major topic, there were 6 bills presented on housing. 5 of the 6 passed. One of them, SB 1120, lost only because of a technicality that they started the roll call vote to pass it, which it passed, after midnight. And thanks to State Senator Shannon Grove, who caught it and was able to show the screenshot when the voting started, the vote was ruled out of order and will be brought up again. Basically what the 5 did, and this will be brought up again in 2021, is to take away the right of your city council to issue permits and zoning for housing in your community. So you're there in the Silicon Valley. You may be in Los Gatos, you may be in Los Altos, you may be in San Jose, in Santa Clara. You're there in the valley. But if you want to protest any zoning or permits in your neighborhood, you don't go to City Hall, you don't go to the County Hall of Administration, you'll be forced to go to Sacramento and talk to people who have probably never been in your town, who are going to decide what your town is to look like. And you can't defeat them, you can't vote against them, you can't throw them out of office. These are Sacramento people, and the bottom line is the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, is going to decide where that affordable housing goes. And here's one of the key problems. One of the bills starts the process of ending single-family homes in the state of California. The first step is to not permit it. They'll know after a certain period of time, single-family homes will no longer be permitted. Second, concurrent with that, if a developer wants to come into your neighborhood of single-family homes, buys up a few homes and wants to build an apartment building 5 to 8 stories, he'll be able to do that right next to your house without permission of the city council, the county board of supervisors, your local folks. The governor will decide to end single-family homes in your community. The goal is to make California Manhattan. They want us to look like the dense slums of Manhattan with all the problems of crime and disease that Manhattan has. They think that's the way to live. As for me, if they want to live that way, God bless them, to go to Manhattan and live under Comrade de Blasio and see what it's like to live in a slave nation where over half your income is taken by government, and that today, just this morning, Mayor de Blasio announced no restaurants in New York City will open up until at least June of 2021. So he's already made that determination. There'll be a lot of court fights, a lot of legal expenses. The fact is, since March, 485,000 people excuse me, have left New York City, 485,000. More are fleeing. People are fleeing New York. They're fleeing San Francisco. The cost of rent is down in both San Francisco, LA, New York, and other big cities run by Democrats, because people are fleeing these cities because of crime and disease and the lifestyle living among the poor, the illegal aliens, and the homeless, not the rich and famous anymore. And so these housing bills are going to be a major, major problem for those of us left in California, and it's going to continue the fleeing. I'm not a stock market person. I don't advise people, but if I was buying one stock, just one stock, I'd buy U-Haul. They're going to make a mint out of the fleeing from the big cities to the small cities, and that's the housing issue. On taxes, the Democrats are looking at 2 tax increases on the ballot. $12.5 billion transferred from the private sector to the public sector to government via Prop 15, the split roll. This will lower wages in the state, lower employment in the state, lower housing values in the state. It will crumble what's left of the commercial and industrial market. As leases come up from big firms, they are not renewing leases at the size that they had. Many are closing and moving to other states. And this is a self-inflicted wound, losing $12.5 billion. Then you have Proposition 19, which is a $2 to $2.5 billion transfer. Half of Prop 19 is a good idea, a great idea, allows seniors to continue their use of their Prop 13 protections for up to 3 house buys. But the second part is a disaster, mostly for the small farmer. Under the terms of Prop 19, if you're a small farmer and you decide to turn over your property or sell it to your siblings, your children, your grandchildren, it automatically becomes reassessed and reassessed every year, putting it out, the property tax is so high that small farms are going to have to be bought. And who buys them? The large farms. And those are the ones using the California Farm Bureau that are behind Proposition 19 to close down family farms in the state of California. This is an economic disaster. And again, it's an effort by the Democrats to lower the amount of agriculture and farming in the state of California. Happy to report that after 20 years of Schwarzenegger, of Jerry Brown, and now Gavin Newsom saying our forests are wonderful no matter how much they burn down, they finally agreed to a plan by President Trump to thin out the forest to stop the massive forest fires. The problem with the agreement, though, is it's going to be done over a 20-year period. So expect these massive forest fires for another 20 years because the Democrats do not like to stop fires. They do not want to save our forests. They do not want to protect property or lives. They just want things to burn, whether it's burning in Minneapolis or burning in Lake County. They like to see things burn. And at least President Trump has fought back against them. He's partially won a victory on this, but it's no great victory for the people mostly in the North Coast and the north part of California, as well as those people around San Luis Obispo, Ventura County, and other places where there's somewhere around 51 fires going on right now in the state of California. So expect at some point in time over the next week, I certainly expect it, that the governor is going to call a special session of the legislature. And under the law, they have to announce what issues are going to be brought up. This is the most lawless legislature imaginable. Rules and regulations mean nothing. They will break them. And their slogan is like Barack Obama, you don't like it, sue me. And so there's going to be a lot more lawsuits that's going to come out of this. The last point I'd like to make is a more personal one. I had been in the past addicted to watching football games, college, professional. I love NBA basketball. I used to like baseball. It's too slow for me now. But I will never again, ever watch a professional football game or an NBA game. There's a world-class quarterback named Drew Brees for the New Orleans Saints. He is now wearing a cap with the name of an alleged rapist on it, and he's proud of promoting a rapist as part of diversity. That's not diversity, that's criminal. And the NFL has decided to start using the Black national anthem, not the American national anthem. The players are using political slogans, racist slogans on their jerseys and on their cleats. The stadiums are filled with racist, Marxist promotion of the BLM, which is a violent Marxist organization. And these athletes who may be great on the field have very little between the ears because they're supporting their own downfall. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union welcomed a man by the name of Patrice Lumumba from the Congo to their midst because he was being discriminated against by the white power structure of the Congo. Almost as soon as he got to Russia, to the Soviet Union, He found out that the Soviets were as bigoted as a Klan meeting, and they made him feel unwelcomed, and he was forced to stay there because he couldn't go back home because he'd be killed if he did. And so the Democrat Party has been the party that has harmed black people for generations. And now we have an organization, the NFL, with 70% black players screaming that it's a racist society, with only 70% of them on the team. It's just unimaginable, the hypocrisy, the double standard. I feel sorry for these young people who've been used, and they're so wealthy they don't have to work. It's about time that we start watching other stuff. For those who read my newsletter on a regular basis, I've been doing my newsletter since 1996. I always have a throwaway line about the worst TV show in the history of mankind is Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing for good reason. And I'm going to watch a marathon of Seinfeld rather than watching these bigots tell me that rape, murder, and racism is a good thing in our country. I think it's time that we turn our attention to more serious endeavors by serious people. And it's not going to be a great boycott. It's just turn off the TV. Turn off listening to this stuff. If you see a big corporation that is supporting and financing the riots through funding of the BLM, find another product. Do without a product. No big deal about it. Just let them pay the penalty for being bigots. We don't want a war, but as I've said in my newsletter, we are in a civil war, and we don't need a gun to fight it. We need our economic power to fight it. So that'll give you a little idea of what's going on. One last thing about the coming election, and that's the the fact that the election is going to be in 60 days. And while the Assembly Caucus, Senate Caucus, and congressional folks are keying in on extremely few races, we need to be concentrating on city council races, school board races, mayor races, special districts, etc. We need to elect as many people to the so-called nonpartisan races so we can start building a farm team. And as we do so, once we get past November 3rd, we'll come back and we'll create a new strategy to totally redo the California Republican Party into a grassroots party that takes care of the local candidates while the caucuses take care of the legislative candidates. So that'll give you an idea as to what's going on. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, while the other two are getting fired up there, and come on back, Ken and Vicki, when you're ready. I gotta ask this one question there. Is it time to recall Jessica Patterson?
No, you can't recall her because there can't be a meeting to recall her. She's up for re-election in February of 2021. So even if you wanted to try to remove her, the technical bureaucratic obstacles are way too large. And quite frankly, I want to ignore her. She's ignored the party. She's ignored President Trump. We need to move on being productive. She could do what she does. And we shouldn't be really considering her at this point. She plays at it, but the reality is she's no longer a factor in California politics.
Which is good.
I have a question for you, Steve. You what an overview. Oh my gosh, you just gave us so many wonderful insights to what's been going on and really educated us. I wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned that the governor may decide to call a special session, and I know that you said Assemblyman Kiley is pressing for some of those things. What would be their focus, do you think, in regards to calling that special session? what should we be watching for, and when may be the timeline that they would be doing that, or when do they have to do it by?
As I understand the law, he has only a 5-day notice he has to give the legislature for a special session. Second, as to your question, Vicki, about the focus, the first focus has to be economics, which is the budget, and they'll use the budget as a policy vehicle. They also want to have some more housing bills passed. There's some education issues that they left on the table. There's some more diversity stuff, i.e. discrimination. They passed a bill mandating, I know this sounds crazy, but they passed a bill the governors are going to sign mandating that you have a certain number of LGBTQ people on your board of directors. If you're a corporation, prove it.
Yeah.
And a certain number of people of minorities, not because they're qualified, but because of the color of their skin. The discrimination of the Democrat Party is so pervasive. Now it's going to hit the boardroom. It's going to harm California companies. Another reason why California corporations are going to leave the state. They want to run their corporations as a profit, not as a government entity. And so these are the type of things that are coming up.
Yeah, and when you say that, Steve, I just want the wealth tax, that if you decide, okay, we're talking about people and businesses leaving the state of California, and so now if you leave, you have to pay California because you made the money in California. Could you explain that a little bit to the people today?
No, I can't. It's totally unexplainable.
Yeah, well,
You could just steal from people who left 7. So we all have friends who 6, 7, 8 years ago left California, right?
yes.
The state of California is now going to go to those people in Texas, Tennessee, Nevada, Utah, and say, you owe us back taxes because you left.
It's
Can
crazy.
you imagine the lawsuits on that? Plus, as people see this coming, they will realize that it's important for them to leave the state now before the state gets a hold of their assets. And they're going to sell off assets in the state of California, even at a discount, just to protect their nest egg. It's going to be a massive economic dislocation, truly. And this is Assemblyman Rob Bonta up your way as his brilliant idea of how to steal. He believes your assets belong to the state, and what the state allows you to keep, you should be thankful for. And so between all the higher taxes, the regulations, and now just the concept being mentioned, even if it doesn't pass, it's now in the back of minds of everybody. We need to get out of here as quick as we can, which is the only stock I would ever recommend buying at this moment is U-Haul.
I know, you said that. Well, I have a good idea. Maybe what we should do is create pants without pockets so they can't put their hands in our pockets anymore. Because you're going out of the state and they still got their hand in your pocket. So we need to slap hands or take pockets off. But thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
I hate to mention this. These guys are just perverts. They don't mind the fact you don't have pockets.
Yeah.
Steve, we have a question from Stella, and it ties into your earlier presentation about the cleanup of the voter rolls. She says her daughter moved to Virginia and registered in Virginia, but can't enroll in California. Have you heard that before?
Of course.
Oh.
The duplicity. Here's part of the problem. There is no coordinated database between the 50 states on voter rolls. Literally, Ken, you could register to vote in 50 states and no other state would know it.
Wow.
And so you could get under this edict of everybody, dead or alive, getting a ballot. You could get 50 ballots, and you could vote 50 times, and there's no way to catch it because there's no national database of voting rolls.
Well, we saw in the paper just a few days ago that somebody has been charged for voting 3 times for his dead mother.
Ken, I thought you were a constitutionalist. Don't you think the dead have the right to the vote?
Well, I see where President Trump told people yesterday, go vote and vote often.
Well, actually, what he said was, and the Democrats just fall in his trap every time. He said, look, if you vote by mail, check to see they got it. If they haven't gotten it, go to the polls and vote. What is wrong with telling people to vote? The problem the Democrats have is they don't want you to vote. They want the dead to vote. There's the famous story that's a New York fixer who over the last week has blown the whistle on how the Democrats steal the envelope, the voting envelope, make reproductions of it, and vote people dead or alive several times. And the first vote that comes in is the vote that gets counted. And so you have Maloney in New York, where they have 26,000 votes weren't counted because they came in late. There's a race in New Jersey I read just this morning where a guy won. Whoops, he lost because 2 weeks after the election they found 13,000 votes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the finding of it. And for those who live in LA County may have the most corrupt registrar of voters in the history of our country. There's a guy by the name of Dean Logan. Nobody knows him, right? Nobody knows Dean. Before he was the registrar in LA County, he was the registrar in Kings County, Seattle. And during a governor's race, the winner was the Republican. 2.5 weeks later, this registrar, like Moses, found 13 ballot boxes in the river, and he counted the votes, and lo and behold, the Democrat won the governorship. I mean, Moses was found in the river, these ballot boxes. I mean, you can't make these stories up. How corrupt can you be? And no one batted an eye.
We're laughing about this, but what is November going to look like, really? What's going to happen here?
Joe Biden said it best. I hate to quote him. Do you really think that the violence is going to stop if you reelect Trump? What they're saying is either you elect me or we will tear down the country. They are threatening us with a full-scale civil war. That's what's going to happen to the country. There's a story this morning where the Biden people say unless he wins by a landslide, Biden wins by a landslide, there's going to be a violent civil war. They are telling us that we're a two-bit banana republic, and like Venezuela and Cuba, just roll over and say, yes, master.
Wow, that is just terrible. I want to read one of the questions down here. I think you probably mentioned it, but it just says, how about reparations for Native Americans whose land was taken? Or how about reparations for Chinese interned on Angel Island?
Well, as far as the Native Americans just won a massive U.S. Supreme Court decision owning a major, now they have to own a major part of the state of Oklahoma. So, so that is in the works. But yes, all of those things, there needs to be reparations for mistakes or just plain out discrimination from the past. We made agreements with nations, with tribes. We have a responsibility as honest people to live up to those. And we haven't. And the good news is that President Trump is trying to do that. Over the objections of the Democrats who just want to say there's a problem, they don't want a solution.
And maybe that's part of the reparations, group of that they're putting together. They just want to talk about it for a while, and at least they say to the people, oh, we're doing something about it.
No, this reparations bill is strictly for blacks. If you're Native American, Chinese, whatever, no reparations for you. Prop 16 will take care of you and discriminate against you.
Steve, earlier you put out a ballot proposition suggestions. Is that going to be updated before the election?
Oh, yes, several times I'm going to be putting it out. I can't do it every day, but I will be putting it out. Once we get to the middle of September, I'll probably put it out once a week, just to remind people as to where I personally stand on these issues. And we'll see how that goes. But the reality is we need to understand what's on the ballot. And I live in Ventura County. You guys are up there in the Silicon Valley. You have local measures on the ballot that also have to be taken care of. I would recommend certainly that maybe your club have a research group on the county measures and the city measures. There are 230 tax increases on local ballots on the November ballot around the state, 230 of them.
Well, there's been some talk that ballot measures are not passing like they used to for tax increases just because people are getting taxed out.
Right. The March primary showed a lot of a larger than normal number of tax measures failing. And I think in this economic condition that we're in, government created, that we're going to wind up being able to defeat even more. People are going to have to make it. There's a town in Ventura County called Oxnard. It's just a poor Hispanic town, and the idiots running it have a 1.5-cent sales tax increase on the ballot just to save their own government because they've misspent, they're corrupt, and that's going to go down to defeat because the Hispanics that live there understand they can't afford another 1.50 sales tax just in their community.
That tax. That's why people are investing in that U-Haul that you encourage them to buy stock in, you know. But we love California, and you know, we're fighting for it. We're standing up for it. But we can certainly hear with what you've spoken about today, the things that are happening and how important it is to make some change up there in Sacramento and as much as we can. With all 80 of the assembly seats up for election and 20 of those 40 Senate seats, come on, California, we can do better than we have done.
We can. Somebody just put up on the chat a word that this is depressing. Well, let me explain something. My good friend Tom Del Beccaro sometimes calls me Dr. Doom and Gloom. It's been my feeling the only way to get rid of an addiction is to admit you have the problem. We can't hide it under the rug anymore. We can't put on smiley faces and say everything's okay. Let's just march on. We need to understand the seriousness of the situation before we can fix the situation. Unless we recognize how serious it is, we're not going to do anything about it. Harry Truman said, I don't give them hell, I just tell the truth and they think it's hell. And the reality is, while the Democrats are putting on smiling faces, oh, you can afford another $12.5 billion here, another $2.5 billion here, 7.5 tax here, fewer jobs there. You can afford it. It's good for all of us. Let's pull together and unite. What they want to do is not unite, but destroy. And we have to first start with the foundation. And that's my biggest complaint about the status of the state party. It's really not doing the job. It's not aggressive. It's not promoting the fact that we are in this deep of trouble. They are saying, well, we hate Gavin, give us money. We need Trump, give us money. We need to defeat Democrats, give us money. The reality is we need more than those type of words. We need action. We need aggressive action. We need to take it to the Democrat. Before Donald Trump, politics was civil. It was civil because we were afraid to take on the truth. Donald Trump is not afraid of taking on the truth. You may not like the truth, but it is the truth. And you can't solve problems without knowing what the truth is. And until we do, until we act like Donald Trump, in the sense that we're willing to address the problems forthfully, rightfully, truthfully, we're never going to get anywhere. And it's the responsibility of us as leaders. You notice in my newsletter, I use a phrase many times, leaders lead. And you see what you get with the leadership.
Before Donald Trump, though, you got to remember that we were all afraid to say anything because no matter what you said, you were accused of racism, which is pathetic. San Jose, go ahead.
I have an 11 o'clock conference call with one of my city council people. So yes, I'm running a whole series of city council races around the state. And so they're
Great.
Zooming. So,
By the way, we have a member, Brad Imamura, who has decided to run for city council in the city of Marina, where they've moved to. And it's very exciting. We're finally starting to get some people step up and run some races like Vicky's doing. And so if you want to have a look at brad4marina.com and see what he's doing, donate if you care to. And it looks like Jan is back.
Yeah, I heard Steve say he's got to get on another call, and I know your time is precious, Steve, and we want to thank you. And, you know, somebody asked how they can get your newsletter. You send an email to?
Just send it to me directly. Stephen Frank, STEPHENFRANK @sbcglobal.net, and I'll take care of it.
Great. Thank you so much. And
Best to you, Steve, on those races.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
yeah, best to you. I have a couple announcements. Just to, you can go and get on your call, but I just wanted to tell our people out there, we are doing a voter guide. Thanks to Wendy Brukwinski, I'm pointing to her on the screen, gone through all the city measures, all the tax bonds. We will have a very complete voter guide thanks to Wendy. So give her a lot of credit for that. And Steve said, work on the nonpartisan elections. SVGOP, the Santa Clara County Republican Party, will have 70,000 door hangers that list all the Republicans running in the propositions. We need people to help distribute them in their neighborhoods. So when somebody asks you to do that, please say yes. And if you're willing to do it in your neighborhood, send me an email. We'll get you connected to where you need to be.
And one last thing, Vicky needs help. She's one of the most aggressive, active candidates in the state. She represents our party and our philosophy fantastically. And I certainly appreciate her stepping up and all of her activities. Anything anybody could do to help Vicky would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. I have some of those door hangers I can add, Jan, and I just want to say, when someone mentioned it was depressing, and and Steve went on to say we have to tell the truth, we have to talk about it. And the thing is it's really a call to action to all of us, because we can sit by the sideline and continue to hear about these things, but unless we start engaging, we're just going to have the same old thing, and we can just complain about it and complain about it. It is time for action. This is the time, and this is the hour in 2020, because we have got to get engaged. We cannot just sit by and do anything. You can walk your neighborhoods, you can hang door hangers, you don't have to talk to the people. Some of the people are out there getting the Gavin Newsom signatures. Let's not do anything, because then we're just going to say, look what happened, we couldn't win. No, let's just say this is why we win, and let's keep on winning and winning and winning, just like our president said. Let's just keep on winning. Why not? We have to change the way we think and engage in the process. And it's time. Not only is it important for your vote, but it's important to get engaged. You can make phone calls for candidates. There's all kinds of opportunities for you, and you can feel confident and good that you did your part. So I would just encourage that call to action. Yeah, it is. It's tough medicine today. We had to look at the mess, but you know what? It's time to clean it up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you every month. You're just a great group, and more importantly, it's not just your Zoom meetings. You're actually doing activist work, you're promoting candidates, you're helping candidates, the voter guide, everything else that you guys do. This is what political activism looks like.
Somebody's got to do something.
Amen.
We can't ignore this any longer.
Thank you so much, Steve. We always appreciate you, and
Yes.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
The update. Yeah, see you tomorrow. We're joining you tomorrow. And then we're hitting the road, with our tennis shoes on to hang door
You
hanging.
got it.
Right.
Take care.
My husband walked
Okay,
our
thank you.